Welcome to the Injection Connection, in-depth discussions with thought leaders and professionals in the polyurethane infrastructure repair industry, hosted by Jim Spiegel, Vice President of Alchemy-Spetec and board member at the International Concrete Repair Institute.
All right, we're live, Charlie. So, welcome to the next episode of the Injection Connection podcast. I'm the host, Jim Spiegel with Alchemy-Spetec, and for this episode, we're welcoming Charlie Lerman, the Grout Geek, is the moniker in the industry, and I can totally support that. This is a little bit of a different episode in that Charlie and I are colleagues and work together, so we're going to do our best to put down the Alchemy-Spetec flag and speak openly and non-proprietarily on chemical grouting as it relates to leak seal grouting. So, Charlie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I've been listening to these; they're great, and I'm honored to actually be on it and doing one.
Great. So, why don't we start off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself? You know, where you came from. Start at the beginning, and just let us know how you got into the grouting industry.
Sure. So, I went straight into the Navy out of high school and spent some time on submarines, learned some mechanical stuff, a lot of pumps and equipment type things. And then I was a recruiter for a few years. I got out around 2000 and started right into the construction industry and a couple different types of jobs, but ended up in restoration type construction. And every once in a while I do some chemical grouting jobs, and I'd always call on a manufacturer to get support out there. And that led me into actually starting then with Denif. I was there for 6 years. When they had their tech service guy retire, they offered me that position. So I spent 6 years at Denif and learned a ton with them back in Houston. That was before they were bought by GCP. That changed up stuff, and I ended up over at Avanti for 8 years. I started up their field service department and worked with that. Obviously, Avanti has a strong municipal push. So it was nice to diversify compared to what Denif typically focused on, which is more dam and highway parking garage infrastructure as opposed to the municipal infrastructure that Avanti focuses. And I was there for 8 years, and then I moved over to Alchemy-Spetec, and I've been here for a few years now, and it's been a good fit with this, and really pulled together a lot of the history. Now that I've got 3 different grout manufacturers in my history now, I have a lot of experience with different products and different applications.
Yeah, which is very valuable, of course, knowing how different products from different manufacturers work and behave and are mixed. So you, as I mentioned earlier, you're the Grout Geek in the industry, and I've spent enough time with you personally to know that that's a sincere and a proud title that you wear. Why do you think you're so interested? I suppose interest is just lack of a better term. Why are you so engaged into chemical grouting? What about it resonates with you?
No, that's a great question, Jim. And a lot of times I'm very I guess honored or happy when people tell me that I get feedback. People say that you're very passionate about this, and I am. I do enjoy it. It's a lot like a game to me, and I'm pushing 50 here, and I still play video games. I played video games all my life, and I just love the strategic element. It's kind of like a chess game, and I look at every grout job just like that. When I go out there, I know what my pieces do, what my product, what my pump, what my drill, I know what all those pieces can do. The thing is, the game is that I can't see into the wall or see into the substrate on what's going on in there. So I have to take my knowns and then rule out things that aren't working or figure out why something is working. So it's a big game. And then on the other side of that is I'm the hero. When you come out there and you help somebody with a project or something that they're having trouble with, and you're successful, everybody's happy to see you. They're buying you lunch, and so it's a great thing because first off, it's just mentally stimulating, and you're solving an issue the proper way, and then everybody's happy about it. So to me, it's just a win-win all the way around with that.
Sure, I get that completely, but surely you don't enjoy the dirty clothes, the chemical filled foam or foam pants, or the sweaty goggles, or do you? Are you kind of a twisted person that
You know,
enjoy it?
those things all kind of come with it. So you take the good with the bad. Obviously, I've spent tons of times in many manholes, and I've been to 48 of the states, and been in manholes in close to that many states. So yeah, there's a lot of dirty element to it. But with my clothes, I kind of show them as a badge. Contractors really like when you show up there and they see that you're willing to get dirty and get in there with them. I don't like being that tech guy that just kind of stands there and points. I don't have the patience for that. I have to get in there and help with that. So part of that has grown on me. I do still have my original hard hat, which has all my grout over it. And I use that sort of just like my moniker, the Grout Geek. But no, the hardest element I think would be, during this whole time is just having a family and traveling. I have yet to have a customer call me up and say, hey, we're going to bring a manhole over to you so you could take a look at it. I always seem to have to go to them, same with dams and all the other infrastructure.
For sure. And that's a good segue into another question that I was going to bring up, is the whole family side of things. So, now working with you for a couple of years, I mean, I see how much you're traveling, how much you're on the road, how much you're willing to jump in a plane, no matter what the circumstances, and get somewhere. I mean, last year, it's a story that we share a lot, but I think it is a testament to you. And for any listener, we had a project that required field support, and quite a bit of field support, to the tune of 60 days, or pushing 60 days of field support. And Charlie spent his Thanksgiving, his Christmas, and his New Year's in a hotel for this project. So, obviously we say it a lot, to thank your family on our behalf, and they sacrifice quite a bit for your travel as well. But what about it kind of makes you willing to go to those extremes, on behalf of a customer?
There's a couple things with that. Let's go back to the first, the base level of it. When I was a contractor working full time, my wife was working full time. We had very young kids, and when the opportunity came for me to change and switch over to this side, I knew it'd be much more travel. I wasn't traveling; I just worked locally. But it also came with a nice pay raise. And so my wife stepped down for a number of years, did not work, and now she only works part-time. So even though we made the choice that I would be away a lot more, we would then have a much more engaged mother who's at home and could, help raise the kids. Now, both my kids are teenagers and have cars, and so most of my interaction, even when I'm here at home with them, is via phone and text and that kind of stuff, because they're running around. But the other draw, it's neat getting out and seeing all these different places, and I truly enjoy being the support element and working with people on unique type things, because no one would ever say the grout industry is like fast food, where it's just you set up a simple template and you do it. So it's always stimulating. It's always something new, and it keeps me from sitting around in an office. So I like being on the road and doing those kind of things, even with some of the struggles. And oddly enough, in that, now that all this COVID-19 stuff has hit, I've actually gained weight being at home, because I'd gotten into such a routine on how I do things when I'm on the road. That's where I'd keep my weight off. And so now I'm having to retrain myself at home and have more willpower around the food here.
Which actually says a lot, because if anyone that knows Charlie knows that he may have one of the more unconventional dietary restrictions, or diet, I should say. So are you still doing the intermittent fasting?
I do. For a while there, I was doing it very hardcore, just one meal a day. I'm usually about a 16-8, which means that you can eat during the day, and then 16 hours you're fasting. I try to at least maintain that as a minimum. But the holidays pop up, and I'm not as religious about it as I used to be. And but I've lost 10 pounds just recently, so I've gotten back on it because I gained probably about 20 pounds. But anyway, that's
I guess this isn't a fitness podcast, right?
Right. No. So.
Right. Okay. And back to your family a little bit. So you have two daughters, correct?
Yes.
What is their familiarity with chemical grouting? Do they know more about chemical grouting than you say the average child?
100%, but that's a real low standard to set at. I mean, whenever I give presentations or meet people, I always say the biggest competitor, and I've said this no matter which company at, so it's not unique to Alchemy-Spetec or whatnot, but the biggest competitor is not another grout manufacturer or anything like that. It's ignorance. Most people don't know really much about chemical grouting at all. I mean, grouting in general is a large industry, but chemical grouting is only about 5% of that industry. So saying that my daughters know more than most people on it, yes, but no, probably still pretty limited. Although Hannah my oldest daughter helped film the demos that we just recently did. So that was a neat experience working with her on that.
And does she find any interest in it whatsoever, or she just think it's lame?
She doesn't think it's lame, and there's a lot of family jokes and stuff that go around about going out and servicing these job sites and going in manholes and all the jokes that come along with that. But no, neither of my girls really want to go towards this at all. That's for sure. But they think it's very interesting.
Good. Yeah, I don't think anybody grows up saying that they're going to be in the chemical grouting industry.
That is a true statement.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I had asked, we post portions of this and excerpts of the podcast on social media, namely LinkedIn. One of the questions that came up on one of them that I thought was a really good question that I really want to start incorporating into a lot of these episodes is, who have you learned the most from in the industry? And we'll take a little opportunity to name drop a couple people, but who have been some of your beacons in the industry to learn what you've learned?
The two main ones that come off real quick there is first off, John Zabel. I worked directly with him for the 6 years there I was at Denif, and he was quite the resource for me. And then Scott Anderson also taught me a good amount and just really helped me out. And really the only reason I probably didn't get more from Scott Anderson is just I lived in Houston and he was, up in the New England area. But those are the two main people. But with that being said, I really think that they gave me my foundation to go from. But where I learn all the really cool minutia stuff is just all the intelligent engineers and contractors that I deal with. Because again, when we come and we sit down at a table and we try to design a job, it's not just one person. When I got in this industry, I had never, worked on a dam before, but I had done crack injection and I understood that. So when I went to my first dam project, I had a lot to learn about that structure per se, but we had the engineer and the owners, they knew the dam, I knew my product, and then us coming together. So I'm in the unique position where I get to pick up all these little nuanced stuff. So when you look at someone who's out there doing crack injection or doing chemical grouting every day, they've got a good routine and they know their stuff for that, but they're typically looking at similar type of projects. Whereas I get to see, anything from a dam to a manhole. I've actually grouted where we drilled into a window and grouted between CMU block and glass. So those are the kind of unique stuff that just come from those kind of travels.
Yeah, I would agree completely. I brought that up on several of these episodes that manufacturers can pontificate about what a product does or what it doesn't do until they're blue in the face. And, there's a lot of manufacturers out there, as we know, that are simply transactional. They want to sell as much product they can for as much as they can. But I think the focus, and again, I'm, we're trying to do our best here to put the Alchemy-Spetec flag down. But however, we do have a huge focus on field support, and relevant to what we're discussing here, I'm on a lot of jobs as well. I think I've been on more jobs in the last 2 years here than I'd been in my entire career, just because we have such a focus, and because of that, I've learned so much more, just being on the gun, essentially. I mean, when you're the guy that has to do it, you learn exponentially, more quickly. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And it's the little nuanced stuff. It's the things that no one thinks to ask the question of, or how do you do these things? One of the things that I came up with, and it's not groundbreaking. It's really not at all. It's really basic, but I came up with just putting a bag in to do your liner where you mix in there, and then you can lift the bag out and mix it by hand. It saves your bucket. It provides a clean environment, and you can then close off the water. Like I said, I didn't invent the bag. I didn't invent the grout or anything, but it's just those little nuanced things that you only pick up while you're in the field, that come about from that. So 100%.
And regarding field work, what's some of your favorite equipment to work with? Favorite pumping systems?
I've always just been a fan of the airless paint sprayers. They're just a good workhorse and that kind of stuff, and have been the industry standard there. So I like those, and that's what I've used most of my career. I'm dealing a lot more now with acrylate type products, and I do really like the pumps that we use for those, the plural component stainless steel pumps. I finally, I've seen some that are not difficult to use, which is nice to find one that's easy. It's still a complex machine, but it's broken down and handles very easy. So I'd say that's kind of one of them that's coming up right now. But still, it's hard to just go away from that old reliable, either like a Graco or a Titan, 440.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's pretty much the status quo out there.
Jim, let me add, to jump on the other side of that, and we offer this pump, so it's not like I'm bad-mouthing a competitor or something like that, but there's the drill pumps. And while they have their place, these little drill pumps, I believe that they actually are hard for contractors, because a lot of the people that look at getting the drill pumps are first-time grout users, and they're trying to save some money, so they're getting a drill pump rather than a airless paint sprayer to save a couple $100 there. The problem is that using that drill pump takes a little more technical expertise. So if it's your first job, that's not always the good pump to cut your teeth on. It's got its good position and stuff like that, and it's light and it's easy to move around, but it does take a little more skill. So, that's one of the pumps just kind of to watch out for.
Yeah, and as you and I have been pretty open about, we have, and not everybody has the same experience, with different equipment. I mean, you've pumped a lot more grout than probably all of us. But, I have quite a bit of experience with the drill pumps. I agree with you. Probably the benefit that I see is that they're easy to take apart. So when there are issues with it, which can happen to any pump that you're pumping chemical grouts with, you're looking at 7 Allen screws, and you're into the ball and spring assembly. You're pretty much in the guts of it with 7 screws. So that's the only thing that I really like about it, just from from a maintenance standpoint. But I agree completely that, if you're I don't want to say quality grouter. A lot of quality people, use those, but if you're doing this a lot, you're probably not doing yourself justice with it. Especially if you're getting into higher volume sort of stuff. Any curtain or soil grouting, it's just not, not relevant. And you're mixing a lot, you know what I mean? You're mixing small volumes, all the time. And as you know, from being on site, especially on large volume applications, keeping product mixed can be a huge kind of functional, manpower sort of issue, because you just don't account all the time for having that guy for keeping things mixed. So I see the pros and cons for it, but it's well noted that you're not a huge fan.
No, and it is a great product. There's a niche for it though, and really that's my main concern is, and I think also that comes kind of from my history, because oftentimes I'm either on giant projects, and that's where they're demanding to have that customer service out there, and so they're not even looking at these pumps because, like you said, they're just not high volume. And then the other times where I'm training people is a lot of times when they're just brand new, and it's just not a great pump for someone brand new, but it's light, it's easy to maneuver, and that is not only a disadvantage that it can't mix small things, but that's an advantage on a lot of times when you're just setting up, and if you're doing a residential area, or you're doing something small, or you're doing something that's off the beaten path and you don't want to have to carry a whole bunch of equipment back towards it there.
Right.
So.
Right. And then on the other side of that, I don't even know how much we've talked about this. Have you even seen the information on the single part rig that Colt fabricates on the Geotech side?
I've heard you guys, excuse me, talk about that a little bit, and I have not looked into it at all yet.
Okay. So that's something, just on a side note, we should probably follow up on that maybe in one of our sales meetings. But Colt, and this is another testament to field support. So Charlie's counterpart on our Geotech division side is Colt Hollander, and Colt comes from the contractor side as well. He cut his teeth with years in the field in the Florida market. Anyone that knows grouting knows that Florida is kind of the mecca of chemical grouting. You just see so many different substrates. The leak seal stuff is there. The Geotech stuff is there. Large karst conditions with sand soils and high water tables, just creates a lot of need for stabilization. So Colt comes from the kind of the ground zero, if you will, of chemical grouting. And he actually designed this machine. I think you'd love it, Charlie. It's actually a Titan 8900 power twin. And I mean, you haven't even seen the frame that he welds and anything like that?
I have not.
Okay. All right. I'll have to get that information to you. But anyone listening to this, if you're into large volume, single component, this is a setup that you want to take a look at. It's just, you can put it on the back of a pickup truck. And this really isn't a sales pitch. I mean, this is like just towards our point of discussing different pumping equipment. But the fabricated frame goes right on the back of a pickup truck. You can fit totes and drums really nicely back there, and it's all mounted in a single thing with two hose reels, Charlie, of I think we have 200 foot on each reel. But just really great for the stabilization and high volume stuff. So something we probably want to take a look at too. For it's probably not as relevant to leak seal, to be honest. Because it's probably just a little too much for most applications, but there's a ton of stuff out there. I mean, I was surprised when I started with this company. I mean, Steve had some solutions where they're doing, just using diaphragm pumps and and doing his injection. I mean, there's so many different solutions for pumping equipment.
Indeed, and I like to go by the Grout Geek. And when I introduced myself like that to Steve, he then threw out a bunch of stuff, and I had no idea, because while I do consider myself the Grout Geek, chemistry-wise, I don't know, and Steve's grown up with that, and so I was like, okay, well, you're the Grout God, I'll go with Grout Geek.
Right. Yeah, but again, he's another guy that just has a ton of experience in the field, and I mean, you can see it kind of in his daily operation. I mean, he still likes to get out there. That acrylic job last week, mixing in a drum and cutting a hole in the side for gravity fill. There's just so many different ways to skin it.
Right. And the industry definitely appreciates the service element. And just at this last World of Concrete, when I was done with one of my presentations, this older gentleman, and I say older because I'm close to 50 now, so he's a bit older than me. He comes up to me afterwards and says, "You sound like the old Denif guys." And I took that as a huge compliment. I mean, Denif had set the gold standard for what service looked like for chemical grouting in the United States. And I got to tell them, well, I actually am one of the old Deneve guys, but that meant a lot to me, that people were out there that I didn't even know that recognize that and see what the industry still requires. I mean, because it's very nuanced and specific.
Absolutely, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement as well. I mean, you're exactly right. There are a couple well-entrenched brands that brought the industry to where it is, and it's a widely accepted application methodology, widely accepted repair for water control and water cutoff. But there's, you know as well as anybody, I mean, there's still a lot of room for improvement just in the education side of it. To your point, that it's been around for so many years, and there were these brands that had fantastic people and did a ton for the industry, and it's still a relatively unknown methodology for a lot of engineering firms.
It is indeed, and the real danger with that. Well, first off, I mean, we would like the industry to grow because it does solve a lot of unique problems and cost saving to it. But the issue we see a lot of times is, you get one spec in, and now that spec's been around for 25 years, has been cut and paste in a lot of places, and it's calling out products that don't even necessarily exist or applications that aren't appropriate anymore. And that becomes very difficult when it's already in the bid phase, and then you're having everybody try to bid apples to apples, but they can't really even match what's called for there. So I believe education is a giant component. And again, fighting back that ignorance on the products, because a lot of people just, when they hear chemical grouting, assume epoxy, and completely different animal than a urethane.
Yeah, for sure. And to the specification angle, and obviously it's something we talk about all the time. Wouldn't it be advantageous? A lot of specs call out for contractors to have certain, and a lot of bid packages, I should say, maybe not as much specs, but some specs do, like in the quality control section. But a lot of bid packages will call out that contractors have a specific experience level. Whether it's X amount of jobs done in the last 3 years, that fit this scope sort of thing. And we see that a lot, obviously, in geotech as well. Don't you think it would be beneficial and increase the quality control of leak seal grouting if specifications or bid packages required a certain level of field support for manufacturers?
I can see that appropriate. I mean, obviously, we're talking about, normally, first off, when you're talking about spec work anyway, you're on a larger type project. And a lot of times it's just the getting the project launched is really the big thing, where the customer service would help out a lot, because it's not that I am some neuroscientist. Well, apparently you have your degree is in neurology, so that's kind of funny to pull up there. But I'm not the smartest person in the world. I've been out and I've seen a lot of different things, and I can train people pretty easily on picking up how to do this. So where I was going, sorry, I got derailed there. Like I said, I guess that proves my point. Not the smartest guy in the world, and you don't have to be for grouting, but it's non-intuitive. And because you can't see through the wall, people just in general kick up the pressure or just start pumping a lot. And often both those things are actually the exact opposite of what you want to do. So really, I look at my job in the field service out there is a lot of times just hand holding and giving somebody a warm fuzzy. Because a lot of contractors, and especially when you got your GC or your boss breathing down your throat, they want to see results right that second. And, there's times where you grout for a couple hours before you figure out what that wall is doing or what that crack's doing, and you find your successful way. And with me being there, I can say, okay, no, this is okay. Let's try this. Let's try that. And make people understand that it's a process, as opposed to not seeing that immediate reaction and then everybody think, okay, it's not working, and throw their hands up. So I think there's some value into having that field service for the kickoff of the job.
So what I'm hearing is, and I have talked to a few people about this, especially it's funny how you see it differently when you're the one going out there, right? Everything's a little bit more complex, right? When you're the one that's holding the gun. But what I always say to people is you should account for some exploration time. Everybody wants to go quick into what's the what are the coverage rates? How many lineal feet can I do in a day? How many people do I need? What's the size of the crew? How many man hours? Is it prevailing wage? Blah, blah, blah. But I like to tell people, let's put a half a day, even to a full day, depending on job, into exploration. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Exploratory grouting is the way to go. And on smaller jobs, a lot of times that's going to knock out the whole job anyway. But when you get to those larger jobs for curtain grouting and crack injection, just having that day to look at and say, these are the parameters. We think we're going to be between this and this mark and by this procedure. And you go out there and you find, well, did I fall in that? Where did I fall in that? And if so, how are we going to adjust out the rest of the job now that we know some specifics there? But until you get out there, it's really all theory. And I'm in tons of meetings where there's all this theory crafting and people talk about this sort of stuff. And while this theory crafting is great and we need to do it to wrap our head around there, it comes down to it when we're actually injecting. You don't have precise control over your liquid. You don't know exactly where it went. You can only see the results and make assumptions there. But whatever I pictured in my mind is what I can say happened in there. But until we rip that open, which almost never happens, you don't know exactly how it went inside there. So again, all that theory and stuff like that's all great to talk about it. But until you put the wheels on the road there and see what happens, you just don't know. I've seen stuff where you just start scratching your head. How could this be going that way? But it does, and you figure it out and work through it.
Again, important to have somebody out there with you, especially some people that haven't seen all this wide breadth of substrate conditions, and techniques and equipment or product variations, to have somebody out there to say, hold on. I mean, just for instance, this gel project that we discussed, I believe you and I discussed it on Monday, but, just knowing what the performance of that gel was going to be over time is something that you can completely set the customer's expectations as far as what they're looking for, just by have gone through it yourself. And a lot of times you might see a continuing leak and think, well, I have to keep grouting, for instance, but it takes that specialized expert eye, to tell you what's going on in there.
Right, because I think what a lot of, and especially I think young engineers or engineers that have not dealt with grouting a lot, struggle with is, how do I specify grouting? Because it's not like a coating. The coating, you can say you're going to do this type of surface prep, and you're going to get it to this mill before you put your coating on there. Then you can check the millage of your coating. You can do a pool test. You can do a spark test. There's all types of ways to verify. With grouting, there's not. And then when they try to verify something, say like there's a spec for curtain grouting, and it calls out for 2 foot on center. And the engineer comes out to the job after the contracts report it's successful, but they look and it's not all 2 foot on center. Well, did the contractor, are they trying to pull something over? They trying to skip a step and save some money? No, the odds are that they had great travel in an area, or that they got it taken care of, because ideally they did it when the water was present, and they found that, we could move out to 3 foot on center, or we needed to skip this one area here because it's always, that's where the grout flows to right away, and we're getting great coverage in that area. But there's a great video and that I had when I was from another manufacturer, where I shut down 360 around a manhole with 1 hole in the bottom. And normally you would have drilled a bunch of holes. But if that's inspected afterwards, the engineer may go, well, they only did 1 hole. They probably didn't do all the waterproofing in here. So there's a lot of things like that where the manufacturer can help out and try to steer the engineer. But that's really where I think a lot of the confusion comes from, because there's nothing exactly rock solid that the engineers can just tie onto and sign their name off on. I teach a lot of times that, there's only a couple rules that you have to follow with chemical grouting, and they're the safety rules. Don't get in your eyes. Don't eat it. Pretty simple things. Other than that, all the other rules that you hear about on how to grout and everything, those are all flexible. I break all my own rules often because of job site conditions, what you have to do. I was just out in Seattle Sound working on a tunnel, and the contract that brought us out there had put in the station, not the subway lines. They could only crack inject into this joint from one side, from the station side. So they couldn't drill on the other side. There's tons of pipes in the way, and it made it very difficult, which should have been an easy injection work. So again, you run into all types of weird scenarios out there that you would never imagine exist.
Agreed. So Charlie, we've already hit I think we're over our half-hour mark here. So I think we're going to wrap it up. We may have to have a subsequent episode with you. We wanted to get into some of the discussions with Charlie on where he thinks tech is going in AI. And, per the Grout Geek moniker, I receive almost weekly emails from Charlie telling us or predicting the AI functionalities, where the grouting world could go, or where tech is going to take us. And it's pretty interesting in some of your assessments, but I think unfortunately we're gonna have to save that for another time.
The singularity is coming, whether we talk about it right now or not. So excellent though, Jim. Thank you very much. No problem.
So Charlie, thanks for joining us. And again, taking our Alchemy-Spetec hats off. If there is anyone out there that has questions about grouting in general and just where to use it, how to use it, and what to use, Charlie has been a fantastic resource, not only for our company, but a lot of contractors out there. Just considering his breadth of material knowledge with all these different manufacturers' products, all these different pumping systems, all these different techniques. If you're a fellow grout geek out there on the leak seal side, definitely utilize Charlie to bounce some things off of. He's a great resource for the industry. And Charlie, just to let you know as well, we had the ICRI board meeting today, and I believe all the product demonstrations we were able to get into the schedule for the convention. So that will be approved, and Charlie will be doing a product demonstration for the next ICRI virtual convention that's coming up in October.
Excellent. And ICRI does a great job of putting out information. I've been to a number of their conferences. Haven't ever done the online thing, so I'm looking forward to this, but I'm sure they won't disappoint with this format. It's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, the amount of progress that's been made, taking it virtual, I think has been really impressive, to pivot like that so quickly. And not only that, it brings a different price point to gain this knowledge that's available out there, and you don't have to fly somewhere and be somewhere for 4 days and have all the travel costs, for what it's probably going to look like down the line is a hybrid approach, perhaps, of in-person and virtual. So you can digest the networking and information share in different media. So
right.
That's all I have for Charlie. So thanks again for joining the podcast. And I think we'll probably have to have you on again.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. We'll see you, Charlie.